Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion.
Leader of majority.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following notice of motion. That aware that coronavirus disease, COVID-19, a new strain of coronaviruses that was discovered in December 2019, is an infectious disease known to cause respiratory infections ranging from common cold, fever, tiredness, aches, and pain to more severe health complications. Cognizant that this epidemic has no known cure and has spread and killed many people over several countries and continents, with the potential of affecting a large percentage of the world population as the impact of the virus is still unfolding. Further, cognizant that the World Health Organization has declared the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, as a pandemic. Aware that the government, upon confirmation of coronavirus cases in the country, has taken various measures aimed at containing the spread of the disease, including suspension of learning in all education institutions and need to minimize attendance to various gatherings, acknowledging that the Parliament building has high human traffic and has given working day, including Member of Parliament, staff, visitors, school children, visiting delegation, and witnesses appearing before the House committees. Given the need for Parliament to institutionalize measures to mitigate the crisis posed by the virus, further cognizant the mechanism set out in Standing Order 30 to convene a special sitting of the Senate. Now, therefore, notwithstanding the resolution of the Senate made on 27th of February 2020, pursuant to Standing Order 29, approving the Senate calendar, and owing to the need to complement the efforts of the government in containing the spread of the disease, the Senate resolves to adjourn its plenary sittings today, 17th March 2020, to reconvene on Tuesday, 14th March 2020 at 2:30 p.m. and B, alter its calendar accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
All statements are deferred. Next, yes. Next statement.
Order number 8, motion, adjournment of the Senate in regard to COVID-19.
Leader of majority.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion. That aware that the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, a new strain of coronavirus that was discovered in December 2019, is infectious disease that known to cause respiratory infections ranging from common cold, fever, tiredness, aches, and pains to the more severe health complications. Cognizant that this epidemic has no known cure and has spread and killed many people over several countries and continents, with the potential of affecting a large percentage of the world population as an impact of the virus is still unfolding. Further, cognizant that the World Health Organization has declared the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, as a pandemic, aware that the government, upon confirmation of coronavirus cases in their country, has taken various measures aimed at containing the spread of the disease, including suspension of learning in all education institutions and the need to minimize attendance to various gatherings. Acknowledging that the Parliament building has high human traffic on any given working day, including members of Parliament, staff, visitors, school children, visiting delegation, and witnesses appearing before the House committees, given the need for Parliament to institutionalize measures to mitigate the crisis posed by the virus, further recognizing the mechanism set out in Standing Order 30 to convene a special sitting of the Senate. Now, therefore, notwithstanding the resolution of the Senate made on 27 February 2020, pursuant to Standing Order 29, approving the Senate calendar, and owing to the need to complement the efforts of the government in containing the spread of the disease, the Senate resolves to adjourn its plenary sittings today, 17 March 2020, and reconvene on Tuesday, 14th April 2020 at 2:30, and alter its calendar accordingly. Mr. Speaker, this is an extraordinary motion in extraordinary times, not just for this House, not for this country, but for the world. Mr. Speaker, for those of us who are Christians, we believe that the world is in the hands of God, and we believe that God, Mr. Speaker, takes care and knows the calendar of our lives. Mr. Speaker, the same extends to many faiths, including the Muslim faith and many others, Mr. Speaker. And even as we ponder through this COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, a novel disease or a type of strain of a virus, which is in the family of other coronaviruses, Mr. Speaker, we first of all start by saying that, Mr. Speaker, our faith, like the Constitution says, remains to be in God. And we believe that above all, above science, above human ability, God has ordered the steps of each one of us and the destiny of our lives, and that He takes care of our human bodies. And Mr. Speaker, we strongly believe that we are on this earth for a mission, for a purpose, for a certain particular period of time, and to serve God's purpose in the time that we live. And Mr. Speaker, this disease has scared the world in the manner in which it's been reported. It was initially thought that it was only China, that, Mr. Speaker, it was a problem within China. And there were a lot of myths about the cause, which are still there. The myths are there about the cause. People also thought that, Mr. Speaker, it was about the race, that it was only affecting Chinese, and it was not going to affect the other human races, Mr. Speaker. But you can see that this disease, having been discovered in December, has spread so fast that, Mr. Speaker, it is a clear definition of globalization and interconnectedness of human race. A very interesting observation to make is that, Mr. Speaker, it also shows that despite the development of the world, the parts which are more developed and those which are poorer, Mr. Speaker, despite the fact that some races see themselves superior than others, the reality is that we are all human beings and susceptible, Mr. Speaker, to many dangers that are posed by different kind of things, whether because of environmental changes or matters related to health, as a virus in this matter is concerned. So, Mr. Speaker, it's inevitable that those of us who've been given responsibility of leadership must take steps, Mr. Speaker, to preserve and protect fellow human beings. Mr. Speaker, I was saying, just to mention the question of interconnectedness of human beings, I was seeing an application. There's an application that, Mr. Speaker, shows how aeroplanes move in the world. And there's someone who took a picture of that application, Mr. Speaker, that shows, many parts of the world and says, see how coronavirus is moving. And, Mr. Speaker, it's transported by human beings, moving from one continent to the other. And, Mr. Speaker, today as a Senate, we must rise to the occasion to become part of the solution, Mr. Speaker, to protecting the movement of this virus from one person to another by ensuring that in the first instance, we curtail that movement. Mr. Speaker, the President, when he banned public meetings, when the Minister of Health banned public meetings pursuant to Public Health Act, Mr. Speaker, as allowed by the Public Health Act, he said we should ensure that we discourage a gathering of 50 people and above. This House, Mr. Speaker, is a gathering of 67 people. And, Mr. Speaker, 68 actually, and also including staff who serve this House would go up to 70 to 80 at any given time. So as we ponder and think through how best we can respond to this virus, it's important, first of all, in the first instance, after Senate Business Committee sat under your leadership, a decision was made that, Mr. Speaker, in the first instance, we need to take a break for 1 month as we put in place mechanisms that will ensure that, Mr. Speaker, we are able to, when we come back, to be able to deal with this challenge in the manner in which we will operate, how we will relate, and, Mr. Speaker, how we are going to interact as senators. Mr. Speaker, since this disease has hit this country, there's been a lot of panic and fear. And, Mr. Speaker, a lot of questions. And I want to thank His Excellency the President for taking a bold step, Mr. Speaker, to close, Mr. Speaker, this country, visitors from other countries, Mr. Speaker, that are coming from countries that are severely affected and where this disease has been reported. I want also to thank the President for closing schools, Mr. Speaker. That is a bold decision, because some people would have said, let's wait for, it was my really considered opinion that we should have closed the gates of this country and the schools from the beginning and start now planning, Mr. Speaker, how we are going to react, train the teachers, train the managers of various institutions, how we are going to handle this issue. And I'm glad that that decision was taken, Mr. Speaker. But that decision is not without consequence. The, Mr. Speaker, discovery of that disease in this country is not without consequences. Mr. Speaker, there is going to be severe economic impact, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in an article that was in New York Times on March 16th, which was titled "Coronavirus Deepens Inequality, Inequality Worsens with its Spread," the author says, Mr. Speaker, and I quote, "Economic inequality itself may be acting as a multiplier on the coronavirus spread, Mr. Speaker, and its deadliness." Mr. Speaker, we are a struggling economy to start with, a developing country, working hard to see how we can deal with our economies. If you listen to United States of America, the President is already promising, Mr. Speaker, that he's going to take care of the needy, the people who are the poor. If you see how China reacted, Mr. Speaker, even when there was a lockdown in many of the cities, especially in one province, Mr. Speaker, there was a lot of effort to ensure that streets are sprayed, Mr. Speaker, disinfected, people are disinfected, Mr. Speaker. A lot of effort was spent in the terms of resources, Mr. Speaker, to deal with it. I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, if we don't prevent this issue, how best are we going to deal with economic inequalities in this country? We must think what will happen to people who live in Kibra, Mr. Speaker, who live on Mr. Speaker, daily income. They go look for jobs, Mr. Speaker, in industrial area, and if they don't get that day, they don't have a meal. Mr. Speaker, what will happen to people in Madare slums, in Mukuru kwa Njenga, Mr. Speaker, Mukuru kwa Kayaba, Mr. Speaker, and all these other people who live in places like Kawangware, who live in Kangemi, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, many parts of the country, especially urban areas, and particularly urban areas, because if we don't contain this disease in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, the spread will be worse in other parts of the country. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, the Nairobi County government, the national government in Nairobi, and all actors, including ourselves in this Nairobi, are going to contribute, Mr. Speaker, to blocking this disease from spreading fast. Because if it goes to places, crowded places, Mr. Speaker, like the slums, we are going to have a big problem. But then, there must be a contingency measure by the government. Mr. Speaker, because those people live on, Mr. Speaker, daily income, daily wages that they earn from working, Mr. Speaker, as laborers in construction sites or in factories. A lot now must be taught, Mr. Speaker, how to deliver food, Mr. Speaker, to those people where they live. Mr. Speaker, it will reach a stage, and I want to say this, it will reach a stage if we don't work very hard. Mr. Speaker, if the people in Kibra will not get food, the people in Karen and Langata, Mr. Speaker, will have to share food with them, either by choice or by force. So, Mr. Speaker, a contingency measure must be applied that will ensure that everybody is taken care of without looking at whether they are rich or they are poor, Mr. Speaker, because this is going to be a challenge that we are going to deal with. Mr. Speaker, this is one area that I think as senators, we must be able to give our views to the executive, to give our views to the county government, Mr. Speaker, on how best we can be able to achieve. But most importantly, if you are a senator like ourselves, and there are people who have been working for you, either in your farm, Mr. Speaker, or in your house, or wherever you live, or your neighbors. This is the time to extend generosity, because even though we get salaries, Mr. Speaker, there are many people who get nothing. And if they are told to stay home, Mr. Speaker, they are not going to have anything to earn. So if we are able, Mr. Speaker, to continue keeping certain people in employment, even when they are not actually working in our home states or in our farms or in our companies or in our private offices, Mr. Speaker, we must work very hard to ensure that we continue supporting these issues, Mr. Speaker. Number two, the President spoke about hoarding of, Mr. Speaker, commodities and hiking prices, Mr. Speaker, of these commodities, and the panic buying that ensues, Mr. Speaker. And again, I want to quote Professor Nicole Everett, Mr. Speaker, of University of Washington, who was quoted on this matter and said, public health isn't just about your own personal health, it's about the health of the public at large. Therefore, if one person cannot access hand sanitizers or water or soap or basic commodities, that person is not just posing risk to himself, but posing risk to everyone, including those who have stock of sanitizers and soap in their homes and retail stores. Mr. Speaker, as even we buy and, Mr. Speaker, hoard these products, and we are the ones who are supplying them, and we are the ones who are increasing the prices. Our hand sanitizer now of our 400 ml, Mr. Speaker, which was selling the other day for 200 shillings, is selling 800. Some places even 1,000, Mr. Speaker. I want to request, and Mr. Speaker, these business people to heed the advice of the President that, Mr. Speaker, let's not increase prices. Let's not wait. It's an act of patriotism. Let's not wait, Mr. Speaker, that there must be legal enforcement. This is a time that this country must come together. Everybody who has the ability to help his neighbor. If there is a time that we must heed what Jesus told, Mr. Speaker, said in the Bible about my neighbor, Mr. Speaker, we must, Mr. Speaker, take care of that person who depends on us. Like, Mr. Speaker, that neighbor of yours whom you have a duty of care. As Lord Atkins said, Mr. Speaker, in quoting the Bible, and in that, Mr. Speaker, any person who is closer to you, that perhaps your actions, Mr. Speaker, may lead to adverse impact to that person, we must be able to extend a hand. And, Mr. Speaker, I saw in CNN a story of a buyer who bought, Mr. Speaker, goods out of panic, all the sanitizers in his community. And, Mr. Speaker, after coming back to his conscience, he decided that he was going to donate for free to as many people as possible who need it, Mr. Speaker. This is a time of patriotism. This is a time, Mr. Speaker, that we must stand together to ensure that we assist those that need our support. Mr. Speaker, our economy is going to have severe impact. In Italy, Mr. Speaker, they have made certain determinations, Mr. Speaker, that have helped, that are intended to help, Mr. Speaker, the economy. To start with, Mr. Speaker, the government must think quickly on how to grant tax breaks to companies, especially small companies, so that, Mr. Speaker, they can continue operating, employ people, and continue supporting the economy. Mr. Speaker, banks must continue giving concessionary loans at low rates to small businesses. And, Mr. Speaker, the enforcement, the forceful enforcement, Mr. Speaker, of repayment of loans could possibly have a discussion between central bank and the banks to suspend, so that, Mr. Speaker, most of these businesses that are now not operating, particularly those who are providing services, Mr. Speaker, in the service industry, should be given a break, so that then they can come and pay their loans later cumulatively. Mr. Speaker, we must think about how we are going to refund VATs and assist small businesses like it's been done in other parts of the world. All these efforts, Mr. Speaker, must be made to ensure that the economy continues to thrive even at this very difficult time, even as we think through how best we are coming back to continue assisting the members of public. Mr. Speaker, this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, it's not easy for all of us. Mr. Speaker, we pray that it doesn't affect all of us who are seated here, and we pray that it's minimized. The Cabinet Secretary is going to have a press conference shortly. You never know what he's going to tell the country. But, Mr. Speaker, we hope that we can contain it to levels that, Mr. Speaker, we will make sure that our health facilities are able to, Mr. Speaker, provide health services. Mr. Speaker, we have also responsibility to ensure we protect the old, Mr. Speaker, and those who have been sickly. Mr. Speaker, take deliberate steps to protect them, Mr. Speaker. Let's not sleep on the job. What scares me most is the statistics that is shared from countries like Italy, where, Mr. Speaker, for the first 1 week, almost the first 1 month, it was not more than 10 people. And then, Mr. Speaker, it began to spiral. A friend of mine who was in Milan, who is in Italy, Mr. Speaker, told a few of us, Mr. Speaker, that there was a leakage through a news, a media house, that there was going to be a lockout in Milan, Mr. Speaker, lockdown in Milan, completely, that people were not going to move. Then someone leaked that information. As a result of leaking that information, Mr. Speaker, people began to run from Milan to other parts of the country, driving, Mr. Speaker. Once that happened, Mr. Speaker, the catastrophe occurred in that country. I hope we are going to manage movement of people, even as children, as they go home from today. Some have gone home from today from high schools. I hope the transport system is going to be, Mr. Speaker, managed in such a way that those who are transporting our children will, Mr. Speaker, observe the hygiene standards, take them home, so that we don't have a situation where one infected person in a bus or a matatu takes all this disease around the country. Mr. Speaker, whereas government must do something from the initial information that is available, it will require a lot to be done by individual citizens, Mr. Speaker, in terms of personal protection, in terms of personal commitment, in terms of, Mr. Speaker, protecting your neighbor and protecting the country. So what have we decided? We have decided as a House, through this motion, to, Mr. Speaker, break for 30 days. In those 30 days, what are we going to be doing, Mr. Speaker? We'll continue working on the work we have as committees, even if we are not meeting physically. The research will continue on the reports that we are supposed to deal with. Our staff will continue working, Mr. Speaker. We will continue through technology, as we have always done. Senators know we are always in consistent conversation, Mr. Speaker, on WhatsApp, Mr. Speaker, on telephones. We must continue engaging to find out how best we are going to contribute to certain, Mr. Speaker, solutions. We also, in this motion, we made it very clear that, Mr. Speaker, the Senate, Mr. Speaker, will be on standby. Every senator will be on standby. Should we need you to come back even tomorrow, if we adjourn today and we need senators tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, your office is open as the Speaker's office. My office is ready and open, and I'm going to quickly, Mr. Speaker, come up with a motion recalling senators, find all the senators that are here. Mr. Speaker, I want your office under Standing Order number 1 to, Mr. Speaker, decree that I will use electronic approval, Mr. Speaker, using the necessary platforms, whether it's an email or, Mr. Speaker, WhatsApp messages, to approve the 15 people we require for you to gazette, Mr. Speaker, and we come back. We do not need to be stringent, Mr. Speaker, that we must see each other face to face to sign for our coming. We can use technology, Mr. Speaker, to proceed with, Mr. Speaker, convening this House. And once we come here, we will make the decision that, Mr. Speaker, is necessary for us to take our country forward. Mr. Speaker, we must also keep in mind that we cannot sleep on this matter, because we are not coming back after a month so that we break. We must put measures in place that when we come back within the next 1 month, we will continue working. And work, Mr. Speaker, in the circumstance that we all know is not necessarily easy to imagine now that within 1 month we'll have solved this problem. Mr. Speaker, we know very well United States is reported, has started, a company in US in the state of Washington started trials for a vaccine on this issue, Mr. Speaker, and they have said it will take up to 18 months to possibly get a proper vaccine that may be able to solve this problem. So meaning, in the next 18 months to 2 years, Mr. Speaker, we are probably, it may even be 2.5 years, it might be to the next general elections. Mr. Speaker, we are probably going to be handling a situation where social contact, Mr. Speaker, will have to be dealt with. So we will come back in a month and ask ourselves, how will we continue public engagement with our voters? How will we continue our public meetings with our citizens? Mr. Speaker, Governor Oparanya yesterday announced that in Kakamega that, Mr. Speaker, now, because funerals are part of public gatherings, And Mr. Speaker, because of space also in the mortuaries and handling of bodies and crowding of people, that burials will be confined to family members and must be done immediately without waiting for a longer period of time. It might change completely. I saw the Prime Minister of UK saying it is unbelievable that in time of peace, human life and human contact is going to be changed completely, Mr. Speaker. So we must go thinking and come back after a month. It may even require that we have a law. We may require a law, Mr. Speaker, to determine what you do with a person who will, Mr. Speaker, want to deliberately spread such a virus. Or, Mr. Speaker, after finding out that he might be having this virus, hide from the authorities. And then make it difficult for us to establish, Mr. Speaker, who is the next person, who are the next people who may need our help. There are a lot of things that may require the law, it may require policy, it may require just giving ideas to the executive at the national and county level to take this country forward. This is the time for cooperating together. I said, Mr. Speaker, it's not a time for taunting each other. It's not a time, Mr. Speaker, for spreading myths. It's not also the time for spreading fear. Mr. Speaker, this is a time, if you are a leader, someone said a leader is a dealer in hope. Our responsibility now is not to continue telling people we might die or we are going to die by tomorrow. We must spread hope. Human race has been faced by similar challenges, Mr. Speaker, whether the first time, Mr. Speaker, people were dealing with smallpox, Mr. Speaker. People are dealing with SARS, Mr. Speaker, in Asia just the other day in our lifetime. So it's us as leaders to say, we'll find a solution, we'll find ways of cooperating together. We must not fear, but we must be careful to ensure that we take this country forward. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to move this motion